Hello everybody, Malekith here, and welcome back to Battle Cry of Freedom. So in the previous showcase video we showed you the regular artillery, and this was going to be the stuff you would mostly spawn from the Forge Wagon and could use primarily in line battles and the like. So in this one what we're going to do instead is show you the heavy artillery. Now this is the stuff you can see in front of us. We have 5 options, going from left to right: the 24-pound mortar, the 24-pound barbette, the 32-pound naval gun, the 100-pound Parrot, and the Seacoast mortar. Now these are all static. They can't be spawned in, they can't be walked around the map. They are wherever you've been put by the map editor. They can pivot 360 degrees, however, and in the case of the mortars that's probably useful. In the case of the other guns I suspect you'll have obscured vision if you were to try, as they will likely be sticking over parapets and the like, but it's there as an option. Map designers can do as they please. Okay, so first up we are going to be doing ammo testing. This should be a familiar sight for anyone who has seen the previous video. We will be trying each ammo type for each weapon that has that type available. You will find certain special ammos available for some of the heavy artillery options. Those will be more towards the end. We will be starting with the 24-pound barbette solid shot. And next up, the 32-pound naval gun solid shot. As we can see, pretty much what we would expect from solid shot. Now, to touch on something that we didn't cover in the last video is the rifled weapons do not have solid shot the same as the smoothbore. They have instead a bolt. In this case it will be a Parrot bolt from the 100-pound Parrot. Now this behaves similarly but a little differently. It is a conical shaped weapon as opposed to a spherical, so it's less likely to bounce, but because it's of its shape and it's coming from a rifled weapon, it should be more accurate. You can look up the stats of the various guns when you spawn them in from the Forge if you want to look at that in more detail. As we can see there, no bounce occurred. So next up we have the spherical shell. Now this was covered in the previous video, however what this should highlight to you is the differences between calibers of weapons. So we've got a 24-pound mortar, a 24-pound barbette, a 32-pound naval gun, a 100-pound Parrot, and the 13-inch Seacoast mortar, which will be going last for reasons that will become apparent. I would pay attention to multiple things. The first is the radius of the blast wave, and the second is both the amount and the distribution of the shrapnel that comes from the round. So first up we have the 24-pound mortar. Next we have the 24-pound barbette. Notice from the kill feed the different types of kill that you can get. And thirdly we have the 32-pound naval gun. In fourth we have the 100-pound Parrot. Minor note, in this case we are using the percussion trigger as opposed to the timed. All of the other shots are timed, but it shouldn't make any difference in terms of the effect to the bots. It just makes it a bit easier for us to work out where to aim and shoot it in this case. And finally, we have the 13-inch spherical shell for the Seacoast mortar. You can see we've roped in a fresh set of cadet bots to be on the receiving end of this lot, and hopefully you'll see why this is one of my favourite weapons in the game. Following on from the spherical shell, we have another familiar entry, the case shot. In this case, it is only for the 24-pound barbette, 32-pound naval gun, and the 100-pound parrot. There is no case shot available for either of the mortars. The thing to note here is the number of shrapnel projectiles as you change caliber of gun. So we will begin with the 24-pound barbette. Followed by the 32-pound naval gun. And finally the 100-pound parrot. And following on from case shot, we have good old faithful canister, along with a slight variation from the 24-pound barbette, which also has grape shot. So we will begin with the 32-pound naval cannon, which is the one in the middle at the bottom of the shot, firing canister. Just for clarity, it is a single loaded canister, not a double loaded. Now what we are going to do is fire both the left and the right gun, which are both 24-pound barbettes, at the same time. The one to the left has a single load of canister, the one to the right has grape shot. You should notice the projectile counts are very different, but also the sizes of the grape shot should be significantly larger. Hopefully the resolution and the capture quality allows that to be demonstrated, but at least from the tracer lines you should see the projectile count. And to round off the heavy artillery ammo showcase, we have two specialty rounds for the Seacoast mortar. The first is called the Stone Basket, and as you can see, it is quite literally a basket of rocks. Also of note here, you can see what you would see in the first person aiming view for the mortars, which is the angle of aim and a plumb line to show what angle you are currently at. So not only the person aiming the gun, but anyone else that can get up close enough can see we are currently at, what's that, 49 degrees with our basket of rocks. Let's see how effective it is, shall we? An interesting round, I should say. We got a few headshots there. Looks like the bots were slightly further away than the optimal aim point would be, but I think if you're firing that collection of rocks, you're pretty much in a bad place to begin with. And we have saved the most chaotic for last. This is another basket round, as you can clearly see. In this case, it is a basket of 6-pound shells. They're going to go absolutely everywhere, much like the stone baskets did, and then explode like shells do. It's going to be mayhem, especially if Aztir has managed to aim this correctly. Let's go downrange and see how it goes. Who needs New Year's fireworks when you've got one of those? Again, last-ditch defense due to the range, but a lot more chaotic and effective than the stones. But I mean, you could have guessed that from the names. And with that bringing the ammo selection to a close, we'll move on to some further topics for you. With the ammo comparison out of the way, we can now move on to a few other little details. So something we didn't really touch on in the previous video relating to misfires is the chance of misfire. Now the chance of misfire varies weapon type to weapon type. So for these weapons here, we will go along them one at a time just after they've been fired and show you how their misfire chance varies. If you wanted to find out the misfire chance variation on the weapons that spawn in from the forge, you can look at their stat block before you spawn them in, just in case that is of a concern to you. Starting with the 24-pound mortar. As you can see, a single shot from the 24-pound mortar adds a 12% misfire chance. Next up, the 24-pound barbette. As we can see, this one is a 13% chance once we get up to it. And then on to the 32-pound naval gun. So you see in this case a 15% chance of misfire. Second to last, we have the 100-pound parrot. Caught slightly in the blast there. See from my health. That has a 19% chance of misfire. And finally, with possibly my favourite ammo carry animation, we have Seacoast Mortar. Featuring a whopping 20% chance of misfire. Continuing to look at interesting considerations to take into account, we mentioned in the previous video that strong winds would likely affect parabolic trajectory weapons far greater than direct trajectory or flat trajectory weapons. And so to demonstrate that, we are firing the Seacoast Mortar currently with no wind, and then we will whack the wind on and show you the difference between the two. I will hold this camera position so you can see the relative landing point of the two projectiles. The big line of bots we've been shooting at is down there in the water in front of us to give you some sort of scale as to what's going on with the map here. Away goes the regular projectile with no wind effects at all, and just off center of the lake. And now with the wind in full effect, in this case a side wind going left to right, the weather vane is pointing straight down because the compass direction we are facing is not north, so it will look a little odd, but trust me, wind is left to right. Let's see where it ends up. Partway up the hill on the right over there. Now if we zoom in, we can see just how much of a distance that actually is by getting a bit closer. So we can still make out where the shot is on the right over there, versus the middle-ish of the lake where it should have been. And that is a relatively low power shot out of the mortar. You could have much larger powder counts on it to go far farther across some of the larger maps. I believe this was a 25% powder charge, and so you can see just how badly that might get affected over long distance. And now for something a little bit different. On our left we have Aztir. He has spawned in as one of the artillery units in the game. On the right we have High Lord. He is one of the regular infantry units of the game. They both have a ramrod and a shell in their possession. And we are going to show to you the speed difference that you will see between these two classes attempting to make use of a gun. key point is they can make use of it, but you will probably see why it is in most cases best to leave it to the artillery, but as a last-ditch measure you can make use of your regular line infantry to man those guns on the walls if there's no one better around to do so. First one to fire wins. 3, 2, 1, go. So you can see Aztir managed to load the round faster, he's definitely managed to ram the round faster, and is already heading for the rear to prime it. And has nearly fired the shot before High Lord has even got the primer going. And then is rudely interrupted by getting punched in the unmentionable.
Give out the bayonet!
Also, select your firing position wisely, otherwise your own gun will knock you over. Okay, scenario time. You're busy defending your fort. The enemy are charging. You're on reload duty. You go to get your shell. You're out. So up until now, we've only been showing you how to get ammo from these boxes. In the case of the small field guns, you would have a engineer spawn you in a new box, and with his engineer points, and you would transfer some across, assuming engineers were allowed. In the case of these defensive guns though, they're not able to spawn in that kind of round. So, hopefully, the map designer has put in something akin to this. A powder magazine. At which point you can run inside, grab out one that you need, and you're then going to have to ferry them one at a time back to your gun. So in this case, we'll just shove this straight in the barrel and let Aztir and High Lord get back to shooting at the incoming enemy, while I continue to sprint back and forth, grabbing more. However, you probably do get these quicker than they can shoot them to some extent, hopefully. And what you could do instead is return the item to the barrel. In this way, you may be able to have a powder monkey of some sort in your regiment, running backwards and forwards, taking all of these shots and restocking people as and when they need them. This does, of course, rely on the map designers having actually put one of these in. So if you're designing for these heavy artillery pieces, please bear in mind that ammo resupply is a thing, and you can choose to place it or not place it depending how you wish your map to play out. Potentially the defense running out of specific ammo types might be part of your grand plan. And to round out the video, we are going to cover destructibility. So obviously, firing big old guns, you want to get into forts and through defenses and obviously slaughter the people hiding behind them where possible. But for now, what we're covering is a fort. We will move on to showing you something else you can do with the guns afterwards. But to begin with, we will demonstrate the various destructibility available. And on that, you can see how you can quite happily make a hole to get into a fort. In this case, we were using 24-pound barbettes. Those would usually be on the defense, not on the offense. So Don't expect it in quite as quick as this. So the distances we were firing from for demonstration purposes were rather a lot closer. Okay, and with the rather obvious use of cannons against forts out of the way, we're going to move to one of the slightly less obvious uses, which is if you find a cheeky infantry unit hiding in some foliage, and you can remove the foliage, as well as turning it into a weapon against them. And on that note, hopefully you all enjoyed yourselves. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.